The Panthers looked fast on Monday night in Buffalo, getting a huge win in a big swing game.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Tuesday, January 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. That is TJ Peterson from the podcast that sometimes talks about Florida Panthers hockey, but sometimes they don't. Panther Pourri here joining me on today's edition of the show. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. And the Panthers continue to win a second game in a row where they come up with the dub, now evening the road trip at 2-2-0 and evening the season series against the Buffalo Sabres, picking up a 4-3 win over Buffalo, where AJ Greer pot 2 goals and this power play stayed hot. But TJ, first of all, welcome to the show. But second, the biggest takeaway that I have for this one is the fact that the Panthers were just flat out fast. And I did not want to repeat as far as show titles, as far as deserved wins, because that's the same title that I kind of had when the Panthers won in Utah a few weeks ago, when they were pushing and they finally got a goal to break through thanks to Anton Lundell. And it's crazy. The Panthers were pushing. And Anton Lundell, he was unfortunately 12 seconds away from getting the GWG, but made the difference in the game when the Panthers, 9 minutes left in the third period. But wow, the Panthers were absolutely put on a clinic and did it so with their speed.
Yeah, it was a pretty back and forth game, and the Sabres are kind of a ping pong team in that sense. You know, you don't necessarily expect the guys on their blue line to be the Marc-Edouard Vlasic or Nick Hjalmarsson types, although they hope that Matt Samuelsson will become that kind of guy eventually. So you expect an open game. They have a bunch of young skill, got some opportunities from that young skill. It's not necessarily like the young skill players created the goals they actually did score. Just some grit. Was it Doan that tapped in the 2-2 goal, or who was it?
Yeah, the one who tapped in the 2-2 goal was Zach Benson.
Zach Benson. So the epitome of the young skill of the Sabres there. I'm a big fan of Josh Doan. Maybe I just got Josh Doan on the brain. That addition in the offseason turned out to be really good for them. Don't necessarily need to reassess that trade right now, though. Contributions from all four lines in terms of controlling play. You did, have some moments where things broke down a bit of the defensive zone and the Sabres got some quality opportunities. You kind of expect that at this point from the Panthers. They play a style that does enable that to happen to them from time to time. You do have to make calculated risks to succeed, safe as death, as people will often say. And Bobrovsky played pretty well, I think it's fair to say. Was able to, for 59 minutes and 40 seconds, keep the Sabres to just 2 goals on nearly 20 shots. That'll give your team a really excellent opportunity to at least pick up a point, if not outright win in regulation, which in this particular game, as many have pointed out, is pretty significant because Buffalo is one of those teams that they are currently competing for one of the wild card spots with. So it's a 3-point win, not just a 2-point win, because you keep the Sabres from getting one of the points. You could say 4-point win, because if they won the game, they'd get 2 points. That's 2 points you don't want them to get. So a bigger win than most here. I agree with you. Vilmanis is a guy that we've seen the wheels, and that's nice to see. Total team win is overplayed kind of comment, but it does seem to apply here. Maybe the third pairing had a rough night. that's usually what a third pairing in the NHL does, though. You just cross your fingers that nothing terrible happens.
Yeah, for the Panthers here, it's funny because I was kind of thinking in the middle of the game, right before Anton Lundell scored, I'm like, man, the Panthers are just pushing, but they're just not finding a way to get that extra goal just yet. And I was just thinking, I asked myself, how would I feel if the Panthers still ended up winning and getting the 2 points, but it ended up being an overtime win? And then I said, okay, the Panthers haven't really been to overtime as much as these other teams. They would still lead in the regulation wins, but in the moment, it would feel a little bit, it would be a little bit, somewhat of a downer, but still you would be happy with the 2 points because you would still have a little bit of that wiggle room for the Panthers. But, the games are starting to run out. I know there's 30 plus, but, with these head-to-heads, you got to take care of those head-to-heads. And with how hot the Buffalo Sabres have been, especially the fact that they were able to put 4 on them. I mean, they've averaged just over 2 in this 14 game stretch right before it. And Steve Goldstein brought it up on the broadcast that the Sabres had not trailed at home by 2 since November, and the Panthers gave them their first 2-goal deficit at home when Adrian Greer got the
at the empty netter. I was like, did they ever trail by 2?
Yeah,
I guess at the end they did. Yeah,
they did. So technically, by technicality, they did. But you think about all the goals that the Panthers that ended up in the back of their own net, but and you can't blame any of them on Sergei Bobrovsky. Which you look at the first one, Jacob Bryson threw multiple screens. There was at least 5 bodies around there, which Bob didn't even react to. An outstanding individual effort by Tage Thompson to throw it on net, and Aaron Ekblad's not anticipating that puck to go near, and his back is towards the net. So I'm not going to blame that on Ekblad there. Maybe getting a little bit outmuscled there by Zach Benson. And then the one that Alex Tuch, which he was quiet the whole night. You weren't hearing anything from Alex Tuch. You weren't hearing anything from Josh Norris. It was really that top line for the Buffalo Sabres that was really doing a lot of the damage. Tage Thompson, man, I can't wait to watch him in Team USA, but man, were they able to kind of to at least limit him, even though he was able to get a big primary assist there.
Yeah, he's always going to get his touches. They're always going to try to get him involved. He does have that gravitational pull, and that's not just a comment about how large the man is, because he is a big man.
Yeah.
So you do kind of have to figure out where he's not going to kill you, because they're going to figure out how to get him his touches. Like I said, you just have to figure out like where you're comfortable with him getting his touches. And you kind of pointed it out. These 2 goals that the Sabres scored, and it could kind of be argued for some of the Panthers' opportunities and goals as well, were kind of lottery tickets. They're getting quality chances that Bob is stopping. And the difference on the first goal that they scored especially, is that he, can do something to give himself a better opportunity of making a save past a screen. But ultimately, it's just a matter of, can they put it in the spot that he's not going to get to? Most NHL goalies are going to have the same tactic when they're screened like that. And they managed to do it. And that's to their credit. That's why possession matters, because you can turn possession into goals like that, kind of just rolling the dice much more in the NHL than I would say in like soccer, and where, maybe you get a deflection here and there for a goal. Maybe you turn a corner kick into a goal, but oftentimes you really got to create those quality chances to score. And it's not quite the same in hockey. So it was inevitable that they were going to get a couple of goals in this game. I think just because they did do a pretty good job of having 50% of the puck possession, taking advantage of whenever the Panthers turned the puck over in the Sabres offensive zone, Panthers defensive zone. Usually that puck is getting to the net again pretty quickly. Bobrovsky was up to making the saves on those opportunities for almost the entire game, with the exception of, you could argue, the second goal. I think the third goal, but everybody's kind of got their foot off the gas when it comes to that. They're just trying to prevent the slam dunk type opportunities, and if it bounces off of something, and maybe there was a high stick, maybe we should stop playing so I don't get called for misconduct or something. And I can't really blame anybody for giving up that one, and they locked in, they got the face-off win. And you look at this, you look at the Ottawa win. That's another team that's kind of in this hunt for the wild card spots. They're going to get a little bit healthier as the season goes along. They got plenty of young talent as well, just like Buffalo. It's important to win these kinds of games in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And they managed to string 2 of those wins together after losing a couple. Maybe Montreal, we feel like their playoff spot is a little bit more secure, but Toronto is absolutely another team in this wild card race.
Yeah.
But 2-1 against those types of teams on this road trip, where if you go 1-1-1, you got to take that as a victory, I feel like. And they managed to inflict 0 points on 2 of those teams.
Yeah. And for Sergei Bobrovsky, both of his more highlight reel saves both happen to be from the same line, and both of them happen to be to prevent a tie in the beginning of the second period off a shot deflection, reaching out the left leg on Josh Doan, and then the other highlight one where it was off a shot deflection from later on, just after the Panthers went to take that 3-2 lead for the Panthers. But it really came down to how the Panthers were just able to counterattack, and also the ability to take away the east-west passes for the Sabres when they were on the power play. I know that the Sabres power play has been a weak spot in this winning streak, but Luke Cunnin had a great chance shorthanded after.
Yes, he did. Yeah, breakaway
as well. And there was also, once again, another stretch where the Panthers suppressed a good amount of opportunities, and you have to do that when you do have a guy who's an aging goaltender in Sergei Bobrovsky. The save percentage might not say, but when you look at it and you actually do it via the eye test, that's kind of when I look at it and say, okay, you kind of see where Sergei Bobrovsky's game is on points at certain times. So that's where the stats can kind of somewhat lie at times for this Panthers team this season in a year like this. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss our 3 stars of the game, and then discuss the moment when we knew the game was won. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And the divisional round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like the most. Open the profit boost pack first thing on game day, and you'll see what boosts you want to apply. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. The boost gives you more juice and bets you already like, instead of forcing you to bet something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boost makes your bets feel that way too. Make your picks, apply the profit boost, and go even after bigger payouts while the playoffs keep rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day at FanDuel. Once again, I'd like to thank you guys for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Tuesday. Armando Velez here with TJ Peterson of Panther Pourri, and thank you once again for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcasting network. And if you haven't already, go check out our Everydayer Club. It's an access to an ad-free audio feed for the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You'll get an invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes group chats for listeners of the show. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more. So it's a Panthers win, which means that we are going to discuss our 3 stars of the game, and then the moment when we knew the game was won. So I'm gonna go first here with the 3 stars. I'm gonna go with third star. I'm gonna go with the entire third line. That was a masterpiece of a game from that third line. Evan Rodriguez, Sandis Vilmanis, Mackie Semaskevich. Although Mackie didn't really get that streak going that I was talking about on yesterday's show of 4 straight games with 3+ shots on goal. I thought that he was really starting to win the races to the pucks and really be a key to getting the sticks in the lanes and also breaking up those in the neutral zone. But Sandis Vilmanis, there was one play that they broke down in the intermission of just him supporting the puck so well and him speeding through, and that entire line allowed the rest of the lineup to at least get going, to allow the other lines to get in on the scoring. So that's the third star for me. Second star for me is Carter Verhaeghe, a 3-assist night. You have to go with that, and supporting Sam Reinhart well after the hit towards the end boards, and then being responsible enough to get it back to the point where Uvis Balinskis fired that shot to get it there, and then that nice little breakout, fighting off the forecheck right before the first AJ Greer goal. And then number one star, I got to go with AJ Greer, a 2-goal night. You're not going to see many of these, and playing so well in an elevated role, and then adding on to his career high. His career high was 6 from last year, and then just now adding on, now he has 9 goals, and he's going to be likely a double-digit scorer for the first time in his NHL career. And the fact that he's doing it with getting those second line minutes, got to say, I for AJ Greer, that he is my number one star of the night. How about you, my friend?
Well, Armando, let me ask you first. What is the best ability in sports?
Availability.
That is correct. And AJ Greer is getting opportunities because he is available. He is slotted in on that line. And honestly, I don't think any of us expected him to fit as well with Bennett and Verhaeghe as he has. And another great game for him. More on that later. I'm going to go with a honorary 4th star to the music pickers in KeyBank Arena. Not only did they pick Stone Roses, I Want to Be Adored, after the 3-2 Panthers goal. Momentarily after, I could hear the organ player, playing the riff from Still DRE, Dr. Dre. So I appreciated that very much. And I can't actually give the organ player or the PA person a star, so they'll just be honorary. I'll give the 3rd star to Sam Reinhart, getting the scoring started. Big on the penalty kill, big on defense in general, kind of a menace all night. The typical Sam Reinhart game, you know how much it means to him to play in Buffalo. That's his former team. No hard feelings, unlike with Jack Eichel, for example, but he always wants to make a good impression on his old employers. And then from there, I'm going to be a little bit boring and just repeat what you pretty much said. Carter Verhaeghe causing chaos more from the offensive side of things, 3 assists, an important contribution, keeping the power play going. That's been a problem for the Panthers. Oftentimes they just lose their composure, trying to establish those, again, kind of like lottery ticket opportunities when you're just firing the puck in from distance, hoping you get a tip, hoping the screen catches the goalie off guard, hoping you pick the right spot. And they did it this time. Shout out to Uvis Balinskis. But the star here is Carter Verhaeghe, who also, like you said, big impact on 2 other goals. The AJ Greer goal maybe being a pivotal moment in this game. Eetu Luosterainen and Anton Lundell probably had the 2 biggest individual plays on the game-winning goal, but that's kind of all they did. So I'm just going to give it to Verhaeghe for his larger overall contributions. And like you said, AJ Greer, 2 goals, got to be the first star. Like I said, that's a really important goal that he scored. By no means a tap-in. He's definitely got to beat. By the way, Dan Ellis in the big 2026 did not see that coming at all. Shout out to him for keeping his career going. Unless it's that's Colton Ellis.
Colton Ellis.
Yeah,
former Orlando Solar Bear. Colton Ellis.
There you go. Big ups to the former Orlando Solar Bear. I was thinking, who's Ellis? Dan Ellis? No.
Yeah.
Right. No,
it's crazy. It's crazy because most of Buffalo's damage throughout this 13-2-0 now run now has mostly been done at 5-on-5. And an outstanding penalty kill, and the fact that only 3 penalties called in this game for both teams for this one. But it's crazy. I look back at the penalties called, and I was thinking I forgot about the fight of Donovan Zabrango and Josh Dunn, which happy birthday, Donovan Zabrango, standing up for Mackie Semiskevich after Mackie got a breakout pass that, wasn't too far away from the play. So I could understand why the referee didn't call an interference call. But hey, standing up for him either way. But there was one shift that was so impressive to me around the second period, where they had the Dale and Samuelson pair on the ice for over 3 minutes. They were able to get a D pair change for Sebrango and Jeff Petrie, which, funny enough, shortly after, that's when Jeff Petrie went to the box for that hooking call on Tage Thompson. But the fact is that they were able to consistently have that puck in the offensive zone as well. And also they were able to survive different parts. Remember that penalty that Sam Bennett committed, it took a long time for the Panthers to touch the puck.
Oh yeah.
After that. Oh my goodness. I was like, this is going to be game changing.
This is the shark circling,
Like, I didn't think the Panthers were able to were ever going to get the pucks on the stick on the pucks. And that was when the game was still the 2-1 Panthers at that moment. So different parts that the Panthers kind of survived when it came to even strength, and also when they did go on special teams there. But the moment where I knew the game was won, I got to go with the Lundell goal, where the out of the TV timeout, 7 seconds after, crash into the net, puck's bouncing, Etu gets it to Anton Lundell, Colton Ellis is down, and then boom, right there. And when the Panthers were already starting to push, only allowing one shot through the first 11 minutes, I was thinking, okay, there it is. That's the goal that you needed to make the difference. So that's when I knew it was won. How about you?
So that's definitely high up there on the list of possibilities. I'm going to be kind of boring and say, I'll do it in a fun way. I'll say when I saw, what was it, Alex Tuck that went tumbling over Matthias Samuelsson, who, desperately stretched out to try and stop that breakout with the Sabres net empty. And once you realize that they don't have the bodies to prevent this puck from going in the net, really icing it away, that was when you knew the game was won. Bennett had an opportunity to feed Verhaeghe to salt it away. Probably should have taken, you kind of got to bet on what the opponent is going to do in that situation. And if you think that they're going to lean to the Verhaeghe side, maybe you try to catch them with the change up, but it was a bet that didn't pay off. In that instance, didn't really hurt them in the end. And AJ Greer gets another big goal.
Yeah. On that Bennett opportunity, there was just not a lot of space when he was coming through the left wing before he was cutting inside. So not the best angle. And also the Buffalo Sabres were having bodies back, while on the AJ Greer one, it was a 2-on-1. It's just like, okay, AJ Greer's already gaining the red line. He's already ahead. Boom, right in the back of the net to get that insurance, right? So it's funny because I won't say who in my group chat said this. They're a guest on the show often, but they were saying, oh man, the Panthers are really having a hard time closing out games because in Ottawa, a goal with an extra attacker that made that got it to 1, but the Panthers were still able to close it out, and then happened here with 12 seconds left. So a minute and a half-ish of difference. But look at how the Panthers conducted that final faceoff, leaning forward, putting their boxing out, not necessarily a normal box out, but still shielding the puck in a way where you don't get a full your full tape on it. So that's some impressive work by the Panthers there at the end, even if it was 12 seconds.
Yeah, that you're never going to question their commitment to getting these big points. And, it's a playoff style team, but that's almost a playoff style game. As much as you're going to get in January, God knows that the playoffs have started in the, middle end of the year if it's a weird season for years and years. So you don't typically have a playoff game in January. This is as close as we're going to get. So they put their bodies on the line and they got the 2 points that they needed, and Buffalo doesn't get any. And that's an important part of the equation as well.
Who says that there needs to be a play-in round? And who says that January is the dog days of the summer? Who says? But it doesn't feel like that this year for sure for the Panthers here. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss the fact that the Panthers even out this road trip, but man, does this feel better now that they have 3 days off before their next game. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Quo. And new year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communication is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communication. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes the replies faster and more personal. It works right with your phone or computer, and you can keep your existing number. So make this year where no opportunity, no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNHL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNHL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Segment number 3 here on this Tuesday, January 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Armando Velez here with TJ Peterson of Panther Pourri. And some housekeeping notes. The NHL did announce today that the city of Buffalo will be hosting the draft this summer. And this is their first time hosting the draft since 1998. And that was the same year where the Panthers did not have a first-round pick, where they indirectly, keyword, indirectly, gave that pick to the Tampa Bay Lightning in their attempt to trade for Victor Kozlov, and then San Jose traded that pick to Tampa Bay, where they got Vinny Lecavalier and Stanley Cup champion in 2004, and Pavel Bure's running mate. He wouldn't get two Rocket Richards without Victor Kozlov there. So that's the first time that Buffalo will be getting the draft. But I actually thought about this just now, TJ, of why Buffalo might be the city to get the draft as opposed to other cities, because I know you're a soccer fan, TJ. This year is where the U.S., Canada, and Mexico will be hosting the FIFA World Cup. So a lot of these host cities, they were limited to the amount of cities that they could possibly get. So I think that Buffalo is a great choice, where the nearest game there, host game, is not the nearest one.
Probably in Toronto.
BMO Field, where Toronto FC plays. So I think that's a good location for this year.
Yeah, the Buffalo is always up there when it comes to the TV ratings, and it's not a huge for hockey, and it's not a huge media market. There will obviously be a lot of people that can cross the border to go, and the draft is one of those events that does really attract fans from all over the place. An outdoor game like a Winter Classic or an All-Star game does feel like it's a little bit more for the local market than a draft, because all the teams are so heavily involved. I mean, that's also the case for the All-Star game, but I don't know. It just feels different to me. Yeah. I guess there's no logic to that. Also worth pointing out, unless you wanted to get another comment here on the Buffalo draft, that the Panthers home game on Monday. So this is actually the not their next game, but the following game. The start time was moved up today by the NHL, and
6 p.m.
I am a little bit confused as to why they decided to move it and didn't just move it to the daytime, because the Panthers, I think they actually do play on Saturday, so they may have 2 games before that, but they play Saturday, so they get Sunday off. They can start a little bit earlier on Monday. San Jose doesn't have another game after Friday. They have the whole weekend off, so it doesn't make any difference to them.
And there's no school that day neither.
Right? It's Martin Luther King. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
So
and there's going to be other matinee games as a result of that. I mean, you're going to have fans that can't watch the kickoff and go to this game if they're Hurricanes fans. Or, you know, I think back to, I went to a Panthers Canucks game, and we were going with this other family we were friends with, and the dad passed up going because it was the night of the Alabama LSU national championship, where LSU found it really, really, really difficult to cross the 50-yard line.
Was it the 3-0 game?
I think that was a regular season game. So this was like 20-0 or something like that. Alabama crushed them. This will probably be a little bit more competitive, though the line is certainly slanted towards Indiana. I don't know if you're if you're sympathetic to the Canes or one of the rivals.
Yeah. I am of the rival, Florida State, but I will have two TVs on to watch both of them, but also check out Locked On Canes with Alex Donald. But the Toronto Maple Leafs on Hockey Night in Canada moved their puck drop 3 hours before to support the Blue Jays when they were in the World Series. So don't know why the Panthers and the NHL didn't follow suit there. Only 1 hour. The game is going to be over when it's like the middle of the second quarter.
I don't think it's going to be quite that deep into the game, but like if you want to watch the kickoff and not on your phone and not on the bar TV on the club level with no sound, then you're probably going to have to leave after the second period of this game.
No doubt.
So I don't really understand what problem this solves, and it creates the problem of like, okay, now people have to adjust what they previously thought was going to happen. Confusing to me for that reason, but I guess that the Panthers likely think they get a bit more of a competitive advantage given they have less rest than the Sharks, who are also competing for a playoff spot in their own right. So I guess I can't really blame them for that. And I'm not a Hurricanes fan like you, more sympathetic to a rival, although, in reality, I didn't go to a college with football. So I do feel entitled to just throw my hands up and say, hey, I got no horse in this race, although I am from a family of Gators, including both my parents and my brother. So if there was a D1 team, it would certainly be that one. Hey, just a couple of teams here who have won a national championship in the last 20 years. Interesting.
Yeah. Hey, South Florida,
Miami can say that.
South Florida wins either way because Fernando Mendoza's
right. Fernando Mendoza.
State and the Miami Hurricanes. So Miami will find a way to win either way.
It's the Cuban national championship game between Cuban quarterback Fernando Mendoza, Cuban head coach for the Miami Hurricanes, Mario Cristobal, and of course,
native.
Indiana University alumnus, Mark Cuban. So it's the Cuban national championship game.
All they need is Cafe Cubano with them handy. But another few housekeeping notes here is with the injury to Braden Point tonight in Philadelphia, we'll see if Sam Bennett does eventually get the call. Did not look good after he scored a goal and his knee got twisted up. So Bennett did say that he is on the reserve list for Hockey Canada there. So be on the lookout. Bo Horvat hasn't played since January 1. So that's another guy who's still out, even though his is more short term. So be on the lookout then. So now the Panthers have 3 days off between now and Carolina. And there's the elephant in the room, TJ, of anticipation of guys being back. And with the practice time, which the Panthers won't be back in a practice setting until Wednesday, I was saying this for weeks now. This looks like that stretch where it more looked like that it was going to be the end part of the road trip than it was going to be the beginning because of the blocks of time off and the fact that you can't get into game speed more like when you are in practice, but you could at least get close to. And like I said this on Monday's show, you don't want to disrupt the group that's actually playing on a game day when you're on the ice because you're not participating in the rushes, and you don't want to take rushes away from the guys who are playing. So this is that opportunity for the Panthers to bring Tkachuk and possibly Marchand back. And Cole Schwindt.
Oh yeah, can't forget about Cole Schwindt. Big friend of the Panther Pourri show, and would be another piece to add on to this fourth line. I don't want to dismiss what guys like Stanicha and even though he didn't play on the fourth line in this game, Vilmanis, they haven't been anchors for the team. They haven't been holding them down. But Schwindt was giving you a little bit of something extra. And as you talked about on our show, that's another big body you can throw in front of a goaltender if you want to try to get some screens going.
Humongous, man.
God knows we got guys on the blue line that can throw it near the net. Jeff Petrie, I still feel pretty confident about his ability to sift one in there. And the same is definitely true of Uvis Balinskis, as we saw today. The elephant in the room, I think, it is in particular Tkachuk. His return to the lineup is much anticipated for every Florida Panthers hockey fan. But you know who's going to have one eye open, kind of just seeing how it goes, is the Team USA fans who all recognize that this is a big part of your emotional core when it comes to the Olympic Games. And he set the tone in the Four Nations by dropping the gloves. And you do have to also shout out all the guys that fought for Canada, Brandon Hagel, certainly being one of them. That was just a great spectacle, and everybody that enjoys the sport should appreciate just how much excitement that brought towards the sport, towards the Four Nations, and built it up even more for these Olympic Games, which, the Four Nations, yeah, you wanted to win it, but that's just a made up trophy that ultimately it's not the same as an Olympic gold medal. It just doesn't carry the same weight. And Canada's got every chance of defending their last gold medal when NHLers played in Sochi. They have every chance of defending their Four Nations championship. They're certainly the favorites on paper. Maybe Team USA didn't bring an optimal lineup. Maybe they're going to be struggling for that reason. But, drop the puck. I want to see what happens. You got to play the games, as all the Hurricanes fans are saying about the national championship game. And I agree with them. They were big underdogs against Ohio State. We saw what happened then. Team USA, they'll be underdogs if they play Canada. Well, they were big underdogs in 1980. How did that go?
Yeah. And look at that. And Tkachuk and the both Tkachuk brothers did bring Mike Ruzioni on their podcast just recently on Wingman. So go listen to that. That was a fun conversation. I definitely recommend that. And yeah, the last two times I actually stood up in my seat and clapping during a fight was that those Four Nations fights between Matthew, Brandon Hagel, Bennett, and Brady Tkachuk, and then the David Pastrnak Matthew Tkachuk fight back in 2024 in round 2. That was one where I actually stood up on my feet in my own house and was like, yeah, this is awesome. And I usually maybe a little bit for the Jonah Gadjevich Brandon Dillon fight last year. That was also a quite epic one that we witnessed just last year. But TJ, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. It's another win for the Florida Panthers, evening out this road trip, evening out the season series, and 3 days off right before a big game, ending 2 season series in this weekend against Washington and Carolina coming up. But tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
So at Panther Pourri on pretty much all the social media platforms is where you're going to be able to find us. We're on Instagram. Most of you probably know about our Twitter. I'm at Parallel Circles, or Parallel Circle, singular. If you want to see a bunch of deranged takes about basically anything at all, I just let it fly on there. Not as much Panthers content because I use the Panther Pourri account for that. And check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You're probably on YouTube watching this, so just type in Panther Pourri. You can go ahead and subscribe. And yeah, thanks again, Armando, for having me on. Fun game, fun recap.
Absolutely. And see you again, hopefully very soon. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with TJ Peterson. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.